Today's episode is brought to you by Wondrium. A strong belief in supernatural beings such as angels, demons, or even various forms of beasts and monsters have always existed throughout history. By now, many are accustomed to the more medieval creatures from Europe, such as werewolves, vampires, and fairies, the sort we might expect to see in typical Hollywood movies. But a series of creatures that often fly under the radar, so to speak, at least for those less informed about the religion of Islam and Arabian mythology, are perhaps some of the most magical, mysterious, and otherworldly beings that have ever existed. Indeed, many of the creatures that will be discussed in today's episode only have brief mentions in the Quran, which might explain why they are not more well known. But what we can gather from various hadiths helps us to shape these more elusive figures into more vivid and dynamic beings that at one point in time may have struck awe and fear both into Middle Eastern believers. But before we get started on today's episode, a brief message from our sponsor, Wondrium. Wondrium is an online subscription service offering university-grade content in a variety of different subjects. By signing up to Wondrium, you can gain access to a library of over 11,000 videos and lectures about, well, pretty much anything, from science, maths, history, literature, or even the more creative arts, like photography. Wondrium's library is constantly evolving, and so I'm sure you won't have any difficulty finding something that resonates with you. One course I've looked at recently is Finding Strength in Mental Health. Join clinical psychologist Dr. Lisa D'Amour, as she offers a clinical perspective of mental health challenges that affect some of the most successful stars of our time.
I'm Dr. Lisa D'Amour, a clinical psychologist, and I'll be talking about mental health and a path to healing on Wondrium.
In this series of Finding Strength in Mental Health Struggles, we'll be joining 4 highly successful individuals who have overcome overwhelming mental health challenges. One thing I've learned from finding strength in mental health struggles was from sports analyst Jay Williams, who talks about the importance of taking breaks. Often in our lives, we can get so focused on completing tasks that we forget to take some time to focus on ourselves. As a YouTuber, I'm pretty guilty of this myself, and I've learned that breaks aren't only healthy, but imperative to avoid burning out. If you or someone you love is struggling, Wondrium hopes that these powerful stories will help motivate and inspire, and provide you with both personal and clinical perspectives that lead to the path of healing. Sign up for your free trial to Wondrium today by clicking my link below or heading to wondrium.com/thelegendsofhistory. And now back to today's episode. The most common creatures that springs to most people's minds when discussing Islamic or pre-Arabian creatures are the Jinn. Now there's no one agreed upon consensus when it comes to the Jinn, but there are some characteristics that remain consistent. Jinn, in the broader sense, are believed to be spirits, or sometimes even demons, that are invisible to human perception, at least when they want to be. Despite their elusive form, the Jinn are believed to be composed of a physical body, but that they do possess some degree of shapeshifting. Most commonly, they are believed to adopt the form of snakes, reptiles, and even those belonging to the arachnid family, including the scorpion. To others, the Jinn can even take on the form of humans themselves. What's interesting about this is that the form of the human is not the only thing the Jinn can adopt. In some accounts, the Jinn are also quite similar to us in that they live in structured societies, like communities and tribes. In some beliefs, they exist in another realm, or another plane of existence, with the advanced ability to traverse between their dimension and ours. But in other beliefs, the Jinn live alongside humans, and we share the same existence, albeit without being able to see them. Like us, or at least like believers, the Jinn are also answerable to God, where they have the choice to even become Muslims. According to some, the Jinn can also engage in the affairs of humans, even going as far as to start relationships with humans and produce offspring. In more insidious ideas, the Jinn can become obsessive and jealous with their human counterparts, and should they so desire, they can possess the human body and even spiritually torture them. In Pre-Arabian mythology, meanwhile, the Jinn could be called upon for divine protection and magical assistance. Once thought to be supernatural creatures in pre-Islamic Arabia, the Jinn have since become well-known spirits in the mythos and theology of Islam, taking the shape of both benign and malignant forces. The morality and nature of the Jinn appears to differ depending on the source. In some variations, we see the Jinn as a good-intentioned spirit, or a neutral essence that exists alongside us. Other renditions of the Jinn see the creature take the form of demons, which of course seek to do harm. Since the Jinn were never able to be defined as entirely good or entirely evil, it would appear that Islam adopted various spirits and supernatural creatures from what was once contemporary paganistic beliefs and incorporated them into the core religion. By this, the Jinn aren't necessarily a specific group of entities, but more so a cluster of very different beings that all fall under the same label. Some see them as a varied mix of angels, demons, shapeless shadows, animals, invisible beings, or the angelicized genies. Many Arabs worshipped the Jinn in the pre-Islamic period, but these Jinn weren't seen as gods as such, given that they were said to have a lifespan, and therefore could not be infinite. Little is known about this type of worship or how the Jinn even came about, but there is some understanding that they originated as evil spirits that once lived in the desert, often taking the form of animals. In some Middle Eastern folklore, the Jinn are often depicted as wicked and scary looking creatures, but these renditions are generally considered to be fictional. Interestingly, while the Jinn are able to take on many anthropomorphic forms, they are unable to take the form of a wolf, because the wolf is a natural predator, which is thought to represent noble character. The wolf's form therefore cannot be mimicked by the mischievous Jinn, given that they themselves lack such nobility. The term Jinn itself is thought to derive from Semitic roots, where it had the primary meaning of hidden or concealed, quite fitting for a creature that many of the Islamic faith believe to be invisible, or otherwise unperceivable to the human eye. However, the exact origin of the term still remains unknown. Others point to the Zoroastrian beliefs of the people of Iran as the source of which the term Jinn came from, whereby an evil female creature known as the Jinni was believed to exist. It's thought in some beliefs that the Jinn may have even been a part of Mesopotamian myth in the form of demons and wind spirits, but while they were never identified as Jinn at the time, they were incorporated into the Islamic teachings and the Quran. Going by what the Quran tells us, Allah creates the Jinn, an act told to us in several surahs of the Holy Book. Surah Al-Hijr tells us, "And the Jinn we created before from scorching fire." We are also told in Surah Ar-Rahman, "And he created the Jinn from a smokeless flame of fire." The Prophet Muhammad in the 6th Hadith also confirms that the angels were created from light and the Jinn from smokeless fire. We understand from the Quran that the purpose of the Jinn is to worship Allah, and that in this they share the same purpose of humans. Allah even says in Surah Al-Dariyat, "And I did not create the Jinn and mankind except to worship me." It also gives us the idea that the Jinn, like humans, maintain free will, and that by this, there may very well be good Jinn out there who do follow the Quran and do recognize Allah as the Lord. An example of this takes place in Surah Al-Jinn, where we see a group of Jinn become Muslims after being compelled by the recitation of the Quran. We are told, "Say, O Muhammad, it has been revealed to me that a group of Jinn listened and said, 'Indeed we have heard an amazing Quran. It guides to the right course, and we have believed in it, and we will never associate with our Lord anyone.'" Unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be a clear-cut definition in the Quran as to what the purpose of the Jinn is, outside of worshipping God. In a way, you might argue that our purpose as humans is equally ambiguous, and that the choices we make and the experiences we have determine the sort of person we will be, one who is good or one who is bad. The Jinn appear to live under this same notion, despite some belief that the Jinn live in a parallel world to us, one they are able to live for up to over 1,000 years. Again, we are not able to perceive the Jinn, but it is thought that they can perceive us, implying that they are able to traverse interdimensionally, or somehow cross over into our world, where the bad ones seek to lead men away from the righteous path. It is believed that Jinn, despite being spirits, may possess a similar physiology or biology to us, in that they consume food and water, and that they are able to conceive children. As can be seen in the Quran, they too are subject to Allah's judgment, and will be sent to either heaven or hell according to the life they have lived. The Jinn appear to be made up of several different Islamic figures, such as the Shaitan, Ifrit, and Merid, as we'll discuss later. Other Jinn are thought by some believers to be spirits of wind and fire, but that this is only the form they take in our world. Others believe that the Jinn are so powerful that they are able to take on whatever form they wish. As a form of the wind, the Jinn are thought to appear in mists or sandstorms, but even then maintain an ambiguous form, like a gas as opposed to a solid. In some cultures, it is the Jinn who cause sandstorms and high-velocity winds. Sandstorms in particular are also thought to be the result of Jinn fighting one another, which goes to show how destructive these beings can be and what sort of power they behold. Sometimes it is believed that the Jinn may appear as independent shadows that are cast upon surfaces. In a more wicked sense, the Jinn appear to be abstract forces that tempt Muslims away from God and lure them onto a path that shames society. It fits the notion that Jinn are able to manipulate us should they appease to our more carnal desires, but ultimately can be resisted through a strong mind and a strong belief in God. Historically, the Jinn were thought to be responsible for fits and seizures, quite similar to how sorcery and witchcraft were blamed for the same emergencies in Salem, Massachusetts. Without the medical and scientific knowledge we now have, many believed, and perhaps still believe today, that such conditions are a result of demonic or Jinn possession. Those afflicted with other ailments are also thought to be haunted by a Jinn within some communities. While this notion is widely debated within Islamic communities, some believe that the Jinn are able to possess humans and cause a complete personality U-turn, goading them into violence and wicked deeds. In some beliefs, the Jinn are bound to certain areas in our world, particularly the kind of areas that have been abandoned or are desolate. Here they will dwell and seek to cause harm and mischief upon those who stumble into their midst. Such areas include abandoned houses, sewers, ruins, garbage dumps, and generally anywhere you'd think twice about stepping foot in. Many, however, see the Jinn as more like a boogeyman story, something to frighten children into obeying their parents, and to warn them of the perils of straying from Allah. We also see mention of the Jinn in the Hadith Sahih. Whilst the Prophet Muhammad is thought to bring the message of Allah to the Jinn in Surah Al-Jinn, where we see some Jinn express their desire to walk with Allah, there is another figure in Islam famous for his interaction with these creatures. It is believed that King Solomon was granted a boon from Allah that allowed him to talk to the Jinn and granted him the power to rule over them. During this time, Solomon had the Jinn build his first temple, a story reflected in several other tales, including the Testament of Solomon, a pseudepigraphical text associated with the Old Testament. Another common tradition regarding the Jinn is that they were created on a Thursday, after the angels, who were created a day before. Humans, on the other hand, were created on a Friday, over 1,000 years later. Prior to the creation of humans though, the Jinn were thought to live in a very similar fashion to us, and that each day they crept a little closer to sin. Before long, most of the Jinn were corrupted, despite having received several warnings from Allah about their wicked ways. As a result, Allah would send his angels to persecute the Jinn, and those that survived were forced to retreat into the mountains. When the Prophet Muhammad acquired the Quran, and the Jinn overheard the message in which he brought, a few of them were given the chance to redeem their sinful ways. In common belief though, we understand the Jinn are prideful creatures, and because humans were created so long after them, they refused to listen to Muhammad's words, and saw themselves as above him and every other man. Indeed, there exists a plethora of ideas and stories regarding the Jinn, most of which differ from culture to culture. Where one community may maintain specific ideas about the Jinn, another may disagree entirely. Whilst many Muslims agree that the Jinn are present in the Quran, and therefore should be regarded as real entities that should be cautioned against, many take the concept with a pinch of salt, and perhaps see the Jinn in a more metaphorical sense. But as we're about to see, the Jinn can be made up of all sorts of wild beings. Shaitan. A more streamlined way to understand the Jinn is to break them down into categories. For example, the evil Jinn can be categorized as the Shaitan, or the evil spirits that we discussed previously, likely those who have taken on the role of luring mankind away from God. These were also believed to be invisible to humans, but their true form is considered to be grotesque and horrifying. These spirits, if you will, tempt humans into sinning by whispering in their ears, and it's possible that they make promises and conditions that only lead man into conflict. Some believe that these Shaitan teach sorcery and magic, essences that are in direct opposition to the values taught in the Quran. We are told in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, that in the days of Solomon, they instead followed the magic promoted by the devils during the reign of Solomon. Never did Solomon disbelieve, rather the devils disbelieved. They taught magic to the people, along with what had been revealed to the two angels, Harut and Marut, in Babylon. The two angels never taught anyone without saying, "We are only a test for you, so do not abandon your faith." Yet people learned magic that caused a rift between husband and wife, although their magic could not harm anyone except by Allah's will. They learned what harmed them and did not benefit them, although they already knew that whoever buys into magic would have no share in the hereafter. Miserable indeed was the price for which they sold their souls, if they only knew. With this seemingly placing the Shaitan against mankind, it's been suggested that these spirits serve Iblis, or that they are a direct spawn of him. Iblis, who you might link to the devil of Islam, was once believed to have been a Jinn himself, made from smokeless fire. When Allah created mankind, which he did so out of clay, he commanded the angels and the Jinn to bow before them. But Iblis, again who was made from smokeless fire, did not see why he had to bow to mankind, who was only made from clay. Due to his defiance, Iblis was cast out, which caused him to harbour resentment of the humans. With this, he then aims to show Allah why man is not that special, by plotting against them and leading them away from him. With this idea, the Shaitan can also be seen as the other Jinn and or angels who refused to bow before man after being cast out, and after being cast out, took on this new grotesque form as they followed their leader into banishment. In both Islam and Pre-Arabian concepts, the Shaitan appear to be evil spirits. In Pre-Arabia, the Shaitan were believed to be the cause of catastrophe and personal calamities, whilst in later Islam, they appear to only have the ability to influence man into committing evil and turning people against each other. Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6 of the Quran, tells us, "And so we have made for every prophet enemies, devilish humans and jinn, whispering to one another with elegant words of deception. Had it been your Lord's will, they would not have done such a thing, so leave them and their deceit." Ultimately, in one sense, the Shaitan can be seen as fallen angels, but on the other hand, they can be regarded simply as demons. Others view them as being something of a hybrid, being able to exhibit the evil of a demon, but also maintaining their angelic status, which allows them to traverse to and from heaven. With this, they are believed to spy on the angels who remain loyal to Allah. Despite the Shaitan possessing what appear to be incredible powers, they are believed to ultimately be under Allah's control, in that they cannot act on their evil extremities without his permission. In this sense, they might be seen as Allah's instruments, used only on the wicked to deliver punishment, or used as a test to make a person stronger. In hadith known as Sahih Muslim, a 9th century text composed by Persian scholar Ibn al-Hajjaj, we are told of the demon's specific functions, including that they eat with their left hands, whereas Muslims are advised to eat with their right hands, and that the Shaitan are hideously ugly. We are also told in this collection of texts that Shaitan, amongst other evil spirits, are chained during the holy period of Ramadan and are unable to cause their usual mischief. Ifrit. In deeper Islamic folklore, there exist two powerful variations of the Shaitan. These are Ifrit and Marid. Ifrit, sometimes known as a Farid, are essentially fire spirits, those that are far more powerful than the regular Shaitan. These spirits are believed to dwell in the underworld on the account of their fiery attributes, but in some rarer cases, they are believed to be found in abandoned temples, or more desolate places, including ruins. Yet going by scriptures, seldom is the term Ifrit found without the term Jinn, leading us to believe that the two are intertwined in some capacity. Again, one prominent idea is that Ifrit is considered to be a powerful and wicked spirit, or Jinn, thus why it is acknowledged by its own epithet. In an important 9th century hadith known as Muhammad al-Bukhari, an Ifrit among the Jinn is seen attempting to distract the Prophet Muhammad from his prayers and even threatens him with its fearsome appearance. In some later accounts, the Archangel Jibril is summoned and teaches Muhammad a prayer to defeat Ifrit. To believers, this might show that such a spirit should not be feared, and that like the Prophet, there are measures, likely through prayer and faith in God, which can lead one to overcoming such a creature. According to scriptures, more notably a translation by a British Indian scholar Yusuf Ali, we are told of a specific line in Surah An-Naml of the Quran, where Ifrit appears to offer to bring the throne of Queen Sheba to Solomon. We are told, "Said an Ifrit of the jinns, I will bring it to thee before thou rise from thy council. Indeed, I have full strength for the purpose, and may be trusted." Despite its promise, Solomon does not trust the Ifrit, and the task is not given to it, perhaps showing believers that they too should not trust the spirit, regardless of how convincing it may seem. Marid. Alongside the Ifrit appear to be the Marid, or the married, yet another type of spirit that exists to cause problems for mankind. In Arabic, the term Marid is believed to mean rebellious, and we see this used in Surah As-Safat, chapter 37 of the Quran. Here we are told, whilst in praise to God, He is the Lord of heavens and the earth and everything in between, and the Lord of all points of sunrise. Indeed, we have adorned the lowest heaven with the stars for decoration and for protection from every rebellious devil. Here we can see that the stars were placed in the sky not just to serve as decorations, but also as protection against rebellious devils, or Marid. Some have determined that by usage of the word rebellious here, this is indeed a reference to the Marid, who are stumped by the stars. However, very little is really known of the Marid beyond this, and in some cases, such as the Middle Eastern folklore collection 1001 Nights, the Marid and Ifrit become interchangeable. An idea is proposed that the Marid are the Shaitan that spy on the angels, as told to us in Surah Al-Hijr, but because the sky is fortified with stars, they are unable to ascend. There does exist a specific mention of Marid, however, in the biography of Saif ibn di Yazan, a semi-legendary figure and king of Yemen in the 6th century. According to the text, Saif encountered a Marid and told the spirit to lead him to Solomon's treasure. But the Marid sought to deceive Saif, and so it did the exact opposite of what it was commanded to do. Saif would later learn that when dealing with Marid, one would need to ask the opposite of what they wanted, and in effect, deceive the spirit into getting what one wants. With this, the Marid are believed to be much less cunning than the other spirits, and can easily be outsmarted by humans. Buraq. Many heroes in mythology appear to have mouths, and in some beliefs, it is no different for the Prophet Muhammad, who is believed to use the Buraq, a winged chimerial beast that was gifted to him by the Archangel Jibril, as a means of transportation, most notably on his journeys from Jerusalem to Mecca. In other stories, we also see Muhammad using this magical beast to travel to the heavens and back, suggesting that the Buraq possesses some cosmic or otherwise interdimensional form of fast travel. Going by the Encyclopedia of Islam, published in the early 19th century, the writings of Muslim writer al-Damiri compares Buraq, or al-Buraq, to lightning, suggesting that the creature may have gleamed or glistened with holiness. Another suggestion is that it moved as fast as lightning, and was capable of transporting its passengers to their destination in a mere blink of an eye. In other Islamic traditions, the Buraq was not a mount exclusive to the Prophet Muhammad, as it also transported Abraham on his journeys to visit his once concubine Hagar and his son Ishmael, after they had been banished by his wife Sarah. In Persian art, the Buraq is usually seen to have a human face, possibly due to the interpretation presented by 9th century scholar Imam Baqir, who described the Buraq as having a handsome face. The creature, according to this scholar, was a tall white beast, no bigger than a mule. It could move its hooves with extraordinary gait, and had famous long ears. It possessed 2 wings on its thighs, which assisted the strength in its legs, whilst also facilitating flight. Interestingly, according to this account, the Buraq actually rejected Muhammad when the Prophet first mounted it, choosing to buck and grow restless. But when Archangel Jibril scolded the creature and told it how important Muhammad was to Allah, only then did the creature yield. Ghaddar. Very little is known of the Ghaddar, a creature said to be created by Iblis for use in his diabolical schemes against the human race. They don't appear in traditional Islamic stories, and their absence from the main narratives only multiplies their mysteriousness. Considering they are created by Iblis, some say even sired by him, it is agreed that they are demonic in nature. As far as depictions go, they are believed to resemble dogs or goats, sometimes appearing as packs, or sometimes appearing as a hybrid between man and animal. 13th century Persian geographer and scholar Al-Qazwini equated the Ghaddar to a type of jinn and believed it could lure its victims with temptations or promises before viciously assaulting them. In a more graphic account, Al-Qazwini mentions in his work, Wonders of the Creation and Unique Phenomena of the Existence, that the Ghaddar lives to torture its victims and can only be satisfied once it has elicited true horror from those it has captured. Though he shies away from describing the physical characteristics of the Ghaddar, Al-Qazwini does describe its reproductive organ, stating that it has a disturbingly large phallus that it uses to sexually assault and even kill its victims. Hinn. Much like the Ghaddar, the Hinn also took on the form of dogs, but instead of being of the Jinn, existed as their own supernatural group. It is believed that before the time of humans, the Hinn existed alongside the Jinn, and roamed the earth as any pack of wild dogs might. However, unlike the Jinn, the Hinn are believed to be extinct now, and according to Arabian historian Ibn Kathir, it's possible that the Hinn and the Jinn were enemies, and had shed each other's blood long before the arrival of man. Evidently, the Jinn were victorious, hence why they are still here, which only exemplifies the potency of the Jinn, in that long before we were made, they had already exterminated an entire supernatural species. Sources disagree as to whether the Hinn were these big bad primordial beings that rivaled the Jinn, or whether they were just cannon fodder for the Jinn. But in any case, their decimation once more delineates the Jinn's fearsome reputation. In other accounts, the Hinn were believed to have sided with Iblis, as according to 10th century historian Al-Tabari, the Hinn were also created from fire. In more modern beliefs, some believe that the Hinn have secretly survived their extinction, and that they still roam the earth in their dog form. With this, there exists a practice that if one sees a stray dog that they do not recognize, they should steer clear, or chase it away, for it could be a follower of Iblis, preparing to spread evil. Houris. You may have heard of the concept that faithful Muslims will receive 72 virgins in the afterlife. And indeed, whilst this idea has been challenged by scholars and commentators, there do exist a type of creature who may fit such a role. The Houris are believed to be beautiful women, those who may not exactly be human, but instead supernaturally created, and perhaps more akin to the physiology of an angel, or even a jinn. Like the idea of the 72 virgins, the Houris are considered as a reward for the faithful Muslim, once they reach paradise, and can be enjoyed by the receiver in whichever way they desire. The Quran does make some specific mentions of these creatures, describing them as being beautiful, elegant, bright-eyed, faithful, and making for the greatest of companions. In Surah Al-Rahman, chapter 55 of the Quran, the Houris are believed to be mentioned as, in both gardens will be maidens of modest gaze, who no human or jinn has ever touched before. Various hadiths are also keen to give descriptions of the Houris, with descriptions varying from those that are typically beautiful and those that are quite bizarre. In one description, they are believed to wear 70,000 gowns, and that according to Imam al-Bukhari, even the marrow of their bones can be seen because their skin is so perfect it is near transparent. The Houris do not get pregnant, suggesting that man can have his way with them and not be particularly worried about the consequences. Nor do these creatures excrete, get sick, or even get periods. Age is not an issue for the Houris either, who according to Ibn Kathir will appear to be as young as 33 and never a day older. Other beliefs suggest, however, that Houris will always be the age of the man when he reaches heaven, for then she will be more his equal and have far more in common with him. In more recent interpretations, some argue that the creature appearing as a female only is a misconception, and that faithful Muslim women will also be entitled to male companions of the same variety. Sultan of the Theologians, Al-Razi, a 12th century theologian, put forward an interesting idea that the Houris were actually once mortal women, who were now resurrected in this new form. It is believed that in being righteous, this is their reward, to live eternally in paradise as a beautiful being that doesn't get sick, doesn't suffer menstrual pains, and never endures the pain of growing old. Peri. When Islam spread through Persia in the 7th century, it was bound to come across customs and creatures that predated its own existence. In some cases, a lot of pre-existing folklore was shunned or otherwise neglected, but in other cases, some creatures like the Peri were adopted into the greater Islamic lore. According to some beliefs, the Peri were merely an extension of the Jinn, sometimes more noble in nature, and other times more sinister. According to Al-Tabari, the Peri were beautiful feminine creatures that not only acknowledged Allah, but were also kind to the human race. They can also be compared to earth spirits in some sense, with the Peri being sensitive to nature and seeking to protect it. Others associate the Peri to the likes of fairies found in British mythology, specifically like the fairy queen of Elfame, who abduct innocent bystanders and keep them in their company. Much like fairies, the Peri are believed to be winged creatures that possess incredible beauty. While seemingly innocent in Islamic belief, however, the Persians once associated them with mischief, and that whilst they have a fairy-like form, they were once humans, those who have been denied passage to heaven until they can prove themselves worthy. Outside of their regular mischief, the Peri don't seem to be particularly concerned with humans and aren't motivated to harm them. This might be because they are too busy being hunted by divs, or demons in Persian mythology, that persecute the Peri and lock them in cages. Ghouls of Arabia. In Arabian mythology, the ghoul, a monstrous demon that lurks in cemeteries consuming human remains, was believed to be a terribly gluttonous creature. Whilst it was believed to be confined to the desert when it wasn't feeding, the creature would have no difficulty infiltrating society, given that it was believed to shapeshift into animals. The hyena was believed to be its go-to form, which would make sense when you consider the hyena's status as a predator. But it was not uncommon for the ghoul to take the form of the recently deceased, in an effort to lead the person's loved ones into more remote areas where it could feed on them. In Islam, meanwhile, the ghoul can once again be classified as a form of Jinn, suggesting that when Islam spread through Arabia, it adopted this little monster into its own lore. According to some beliefs, the ghouls may even have been Shaitan, possibly Murid, who had made efforts to regain entry into heaven to eavesdrop on the angels. But with the stars offering protection against such spirits from entering heaven, as we see in Surah As-Safat, it's believed that the Shaitan were burned by the stars and driven insane by the bright light. When they fell back down to earth, they were now crazed, deformed beasts that were doomed to roam the desert, cursed now to feed only on rotten flesh. From what we've seen in both pre-Arabian mythology and Islamic narratives, people really did believe in some fascinating creatures that at one point in time might have either been a palpable threat to an individual's safety or a useful blessing. It's also quite interesting that even the ancient Muslims who stumbled upon these incredibly magical creatures chose not to cut them from their own doctrine, but actually incorporating them, perhaps deeming them too superb and maybe too real to simply cast to the wayside. That being said, it is the hadiths and the various exegesis from scholars that breathe life into these fantastical creatures, and not necessarily the Quran itself. But that hasn't taken away from modern belief of such beings, whether they be Jinn, Houris, or even the Buraq. Real-life superstition of these legendary creatures still does exist within some traditions and communities, and perhaps that is a testament to how wonderfully staggering these entities are. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Until next time.